Good evening. This is Bruce Mufson from Sunridge of Nevada with another webinar coming right at you. Tonight's time, we will be releasing a 4-set piece of 4 different songs by 4 favorite artists: Kendrick, Kid Cudi, Mac Miller, and Triple S. Keep on asking for it. We're going to continue to make that happen as well. And we're going to continue to do more talk or anything on a variety level from an organization. Contact my agent. And of course, he will be more than happy to get with you. Got so much information tonight. I'm going to go right into the topic. No waiting. Here we go. The song that we picked to go over, talking about drugs was, pretty obvious, World on Drugs. And that was a mixtape that came out between rappers Future and Juice WRLD. It released only just a few weeks ago on October 19th, 2018 by Epic Records. Now, here's what's interesting about it. If you see the title of it, I'm going to put it up right here. You can see World on Drugs. So you can see, ever popular lean right on top there as always. Looks like 2 styrofoam cups, as well as plenty of shots of pills and medications. Now, what happened here is that Future made a comment. He goes, on the whiteboard when they were working collaboratively, they had the phrases written, whatever you're addicted to, and money is a drug. Now, the source, this came from Wikipedia. This has linked the album's title to the recent death of rapper Mac Miller, saying the title itself is interesting and speaks to the current state of hip-hop. With the recent drug-related passing of Mike Miller, Pittsburgh rapper Mac Miller, one can wonder whether the project will be open about drug usage or mental illness in the world's biggest genre. Hot New Hip Hop suggested the drug naming in the song title suggests there could exist a high number of drug references in the mixtape. Answer: there are a lot of drug references in the mixtape. Don't worry about that. Okay, here we go with the song. Now, of course, what I was glad about this song was there was a video that went along with it, and it goes like this. Feels like I'm working on dying. The world on drugs. The world on drugs. Drugs I need to fix. And initially, it gives off a lot of shout outs to different people, and there's different montages. And there's a shout out to Mac Miller and Lil Peep. And unfortunately, with Mac Miller, recently we just found out his autopsy showed traces in his system of fentanyl, which is an opioid, cocaine, and alcohol. So understandable. And then you get shots of people doing different things. And then you actually go into the video and you go, the world on drugs. Can you give me some? I don't feel no pain because this pill got me numb. The world on drugs. The world on drugs. Yeah, the world on drugs. What's interesting about this video, what I really like what Juice WRLD and the Future did, is they just showed, there's a scene where they start off in the classroom after they get into the song, because Juice WRLD's talking about what he's addicted to. And then it breaks into the song, and they go back and forth between animation stills and the actual people in the video. And it does an excellent job of just showing the lack of awareness in the classroom. The teacher's trying to kind of keep order, keep people in check, and people are passing drugs back and forth. They're taking pills. They're in the bathroom getting high. And you just get that sense of no one's really aware of what is going on. And you get that montage of everyone taking something to get through the day, because it's like pop, 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 pop. All these different shots of people getting high. And what is that doing to their lifestyle? What is that doing to them? And what's going on? Then you go into this. I can hear the voices in my head. If I'm sober, then I might be dead. I can see a devil in my bed. I was born a rebel. I'm not scared. You've been taking drugs and you're hiding it from me. You've been taking drugs and you're lying to me. I don't believe you. I done popped off. I don't believe you. You're a knockoff. I don't believe you. Gone and pop off. And then it goes back into the world on drugs. And it talks about, they use the references, she's on the Molly in the party, got your girl on drugs. That refers to MDMA, which of course we know is ecstasy. And then you don't got to pay for none of these perkies because the pill's on us. Percocet, short for Percocet, which is an opioid. And you don't got to pay me for my time. It's all love. It's all love. I can't feel my face. I'm numb. If you run up on me, shooting it, Molly in my body, and giving you a good example of what it means to be addicted and going through that stuff. And then I don't believe you. I done popped off. I don't believe you. Go back with the chorus again, because the world's on drugs. The world's on drugs. Now, what's interesting also what Juice WRLD and the Future did, I really liked, was they did a section on body augmentation at 3 minutes into the video, which I really like, because it just shows you the need that no one is happy with who they are. You have these young girls, pretty girls, attractive girls, and what are they doing? Getting sliced up, looking at their lips, looking at their breasts, looking at their stomach, looking at their face. I don't feel good in who I am. I have to check out. Like, I'm not good enough for what I am. I got to check out with drugs. I got to check out with alcohol. I got to check out with actually not even liking who I am, looking in the mirror. I got to go different. And then you get a scene in court where three of the black kids are arrested, and they get into a trial. And there's a difference between the white kids who get let off by the principal and the African-American kids. The judge says 5 to 7 years in juvie. Today, we wouldn't put anyone in juvie that long. It's a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of expense. They'd all go to drug treatment programs. But it just goes to show you again, just the diversity and the ongoingness of being on drugs. And what's so interesting to me again is at the end, the white kids think they got off scot-free. They're in the hallway and everyone's going now overdosing. 1, 2, 3, all overdosing. Escape, you don't think you're getting in trouble with the law. You're going to get in trouble with your own mind, and either you're going to be arrested or you're going to OD. And it did a really good job of showing what happens to you when you're on drugs all the time, how it affects you. I like that line, though. There's not a better feeling, no replacing it. Yeah, and that is so true. And that's something I want to share also as a therapist, as a social worker. When people say to me, I'm taking drugs, I'm not offended by that. I'm not angry about that. There is no better feeling than being high with being under the influence. And that's why these drugs are so effective and so dangerous, because they know exactly what part of the brain to affect and to affect you to making horrible choices. Okay. Top 10 list. I picked this up. Why do people use drugs in the first place? This came from Recovery Connection. All right, here we go. Number 1, experimenting. All right, you want to see what's going on. Number 2, family history, genetics. That's a big, you got to be careful about that. Know your background, know who you are, know where you come from, know what your issues are. Prescription drugs. Number 3, there's always this misconception that anything that the doctor prescribes is going to be safe, no problems, no worries. That is not always the case. Okay. People are not always given the right risks on what the drugs can be. And chronic pain is often managed through opioids, which are very, very addictive. I'm going to say that a million times. So be prepared. Prescription drugs. What do I see kids taking today all the time? Adderall to get high, Xanax or Xanny bars. Really, really big for teenagers. Number 4, loneliness. I can tell you as a social worker, people are lonely. And when you don't have friends, family, support system, you feel all alone in the world, you're more susceptible to being influenced by taking alcohol and drugs. Number 5, big boy, peer pressure. I'm doing it. You should do it. Everybody's doing it. And that's something you see a lot of times, but for adolescents is the need to belong. So, hey, everyone's smoking pot at the party. You're not smoking pot. You're a loser. Everyone's drinking. You're not drinking. Something's wrong with you. No, you're not taking Adderall pills. You're not doing any other stuff. Not trying a hit of meth. Peer pressure is a big one. Drugs and alcohol can make you feel good. Yeah, kind of, sort of. Kind of know this already. They do a great job of attacking the part of your brain that looks into pleasure, and they make you feel good instantly. I get it. And people like it. It says in AA that men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. Really? Not exactly hard to comprehend. Number 7, mental health disorders. Okay, depression, anxiety, PTSD, I'm going to talk about in a little bit, can put individuals at higher risk of developing an addiction. And using substances to deal with difficult feelings may seem like an easier path, but in the end, there's a price you pay for everything. What comes up must come down. I'm going to talk a little further about what's called the ACEs exam. And also, mental health also includes physical, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, as well as bullying. Okay. Number 8, recreation. Hey, you know what? Everyone just wants to unwind after a long day. Number 9, alcohol isn't enough. I need more of a buzz than what I'm getting. And number 10, self-medicating to ease their own pain. I'm going to self-medicate. And often with mental health problems and chronic pain, that's when you see people very often slip into that world of drugs and alcohol. So just knowing these things, these top tenors, there are other ones out there as well, because you're better understanding of what you're up against and what you have to be aware of. Okay. Here is the big boy for tonight. I got this from the Carrier Clinic, and it talks about trauma and addiction. Again, not everybody takes drugs where they had a horrible childhood, where they got beaten up, or they didn't get enough love. We get this. A lot of times people take drugs for those other reasons: experimentation, they're bored, their friends do it, seems like the right thing to do. So I'm not upset about that. But I also want to talk about the huge number of people that I see from doing my clinical work that are affected by trauma. And because of trauma issues that are not discussed, that are not brought up, they are so much more likely to become addicted to drugs and alcohol and go into a whole different level of comprehension. What's a traumatic event? Repeated bullying. This came from the Carrier Clinic again. Street violence, sexual assault, DV, domestic violence, and growing up in an unstable home. If you live like this, and so many of the people I've assessed do, you're at risk for PTSD and for trauma, which very often leads to addiction type issues. What do PTSD sufferers deal with? Problems with their sleep, nightmares, anxiety and depression. You'll hear that a million times: anxiety and depression, flashbacks, disassociative, meaning they're not part of it anymore. They kind of disconnect, feel disconnected. Disassociate means you're not part of you just don't want to deal with it anymore. Disconnect from reality, excessive fears, self-injurious behavior, impulsiveness, and addiction traits, a predisposition to addiction. If you think about it, if you're dealing with all of these issues, it makes so much sense why you're going to want to reach for a bottle or for a pill or for anything to get you high, not to deal with reality. It makes so much sense to me. Now, they did data from over 17,000 patients in Kaiser Permanente. Did a study called Adverse Childhood Experiences. That a child who experiences 4 or more traumatic events, listen to this, 5 times more likely to become an alcoholic, 60% more likely to be obese, and up to 46 more times to become an injection drug user than the GP, general population. It's incredible to me. Trauma does affect you in a negative way. All right, now I'm going to hold this up, and you can get this online. It's available. Here it is. So this is what the questionnaire looks like. 10 questions. Some of them have a 2-parter. But we give these out now to find out what's going on, and we look at this because it helps us understand how to relate to people that are dealing with trauma. So again, adverse childhood experiences. Here's the questionnaire. You can find it online. Not a problem. Now, what does it include? The questions are things about history of physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, intimate partner violence, mother treated violently, substance misuse within the household mental illness. Also, it includes parental separation or divorce, or an incarcerated household member. And we want you to realize this. Now, here's something we've also started to realize in the last couple of years. I'm going to hold this up as well. Here it is. Everyone can get a good look, and you see the pyramid in front of me. Okay, here's the problem. You have adverse problems as a child. What's going to happen is it's going to affect you socially, emotionally, and cognitive. Cognitive means like self-aware. What happens is you then adopt high-risk behaviors. You drink, you smoke, you overeat, you have inappropriate sexual contact, you do self-destructive actions. What's the next step? Disease, disability, and social problems. Now you have high blood pressure. Now you have a stroke. Now you've been shot. Now you didn't finish high school. Now you have complex trauma. In other words, now you have lung cancer. So all the negativity starts to follow you. And what's the end? Top of the pyramid, early death. Way early death. Sometimes 10, 15, 20 years too early, because all these years of bad habits finally catch up with you. Now, when they did the study, they thought, oh man, come on, who's going to have these kind of issues? The 28, almost 30% of the people who participated reported physical abuse, 3 out of 10 people. And 20% reported sexual abuse. Many also reported a divorce with parental separation, or having a parent with a mental illness or substance use disorder. That is such an underreported issue with parents who are mentally ill. So many homes I went into where the mom, who's supposed to be the caretaker, forget about having a husband or a steady boyfriend, was out of it. And I had to rely on a 12-year-old girl to give me insight about the family structure. So she's acting as a parent as a 12-year-old, and the mom, who's 35, is really the cognitive ability of a 10-year-old because of her mental health and drug and alcohol addiction issues. And you get this weird warping of who's in charge and who's not in charge. But adverse childhood, social problems, you adopt bad behaviors, it catches up with you, diabetes, stroke, high blood pressure, early death, heart attack, and then early death. Now, almost 40% of the people who took this study of 17,000 people reported 2 or more, and 12.5 reported 4 or more. And that's what's so spooky. And here's the other thing also. Because they have such a strong relationship, you will have numerous health, social, and behavioral problems throughout the lifespan. And also many problems related to ACEs are what they call co-occurring. So you don't just have depression, you have alcoholism. You don't just have anxiety, you suffer from drug usage. You get the idea. Now, how does this affect children? That's what we're kind of focusing on today. And I'm hoping that parents are watching with their kids, or parents are watching by themselves, to realize this is a family situation. Their neurological, the brain can be disrupted. As a result, their cognitive functioning or ability to cope with negative or disruptive emotions may be impaired. They're not ready. They're not able to handle it. Over time, and often during adolescence, the child may adopt negative coping mechanisms such as substance use or self-harm. It catches up with you. Now, what are some of the issues that I see in doing clinical work that I know there's problems here, there's trauma, and how am I going to deal with this? What's going to happen? One of the things that you're going to see is what's called avoidance, where you avoid efforts to, you make an effort to avoid distressing memories, thoughts, or feelings. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. Also, what you do is you also avoid efforts to avoid external reminders like people, places, conversation, objects, and situations. You don't want to have any thoughts or feelings about it in discussing memories, or in this case, distressing memories. Then you have what's called the thinking mode. Okay, negative changes in thoughts and mood associated with the traumatic event that begin to worsen after the event. So what starts to happen? Constant negative beliefs or expectations about self. Like, for instance, I'm bad. No one can be trusted. You also get another one. You get constant negative feelings, fear, horror, anger, guilt, shame, and also feelings of disconnection or estrangement from others. What is this going to lead to? If you're not aware of this, if you're not talking about it with the kid, with the adolescent, with the teenager, with the young adult, this makes it so much easier for them to drift off into the world of alcohol and drug abuse, because no one is saying, hey, there's a problem here. What's going on? Let me check on it. Let me be on top of it. That's what starts to happen. You got to be aware of this, because this is what drives people to drink and drug. They feel they have no other options because no one's listening and no one's hearing or feeling how they're feeling. Now, what are the reactions you get also? And notice how all of these things lead to so many people being self-abusive with drugs and alcohol. You get reckless or self-destructive behavior, hypervigilance, exaggerated startle response. Whoa, who's there? What's going on? Problems of concentration. Man, I can't cope. I can't focus. I can't think. And finally, you get difficulties with sleeping, which is another biggie. Now, how does trauma affect the brain? And all of these things start to pile on. Here's a thing called the hippocampus. I'm showing you guys a picture of it. A little bit of brain chemistry tonight. For those of you flunking in biology, this might be able to help you. The hippocampus is responsible for memory functions. When you have damage of trauma, you have loss of an ability to discriminate between the past and the present. Not good. Everything starts to blur. Everything starts to come together. Now, here's a biggie. Right here is called the prefrontal cortex. Quick shot of what that looks like. Okay, what happens here is that people with PTSD, they show a significant decrease in the volume of the prefrontal cortex and therefore functioning ability of this region. And what does the prefrontal cortex handle us? Fear, memories, like don't do stupid stuff. Don't drive through a red light. Pay your taxes on time. Tell your wife you love her. All of these things are factors to give you fear. So you have common sense. You don't make mistakes. I'm driving over here tonight. Give you an example. And I noticed something was kind of weird in my lane as I was on the highway. I said, something's a little bit jinky here. It's not 100% kosher. And I slowed down, and the car in front of me almost got into an accident, and the guy had to swerve off to the side, and the other car kept on going. Had I been following a little bit too close, I could have been involved in hitting that guy from behind. But something didn't seem right. Fear. Keep your distance on a highway, and I avoided an accident and got here to do this webinar on time. Now, trauma in the brain again. This is called the amygdala, and that's right here, and that's going to be in this area right. I'm sorry, I'm pointing downward. Okay. Responsible for survival-related threat identification, plus tagging memories with emotion. I see my guy. I say, hey, Rob, how you doing? I know who he is. I'm appropriate to him. But after trauma, the amygdala they get caught up in a highly alert and activated loop during which it looks for and perceives threats everywhere. Nothing is safe. I'm never able to relax. I'm always in a constant fear loop. Now, how many kids are traumatized every single year? The numbers are staggering. They're sick. They're crazy. And it doesn't make any sense. But here are the numbers. 71% of children are exposed to violence each year. 3 million children are maltreated or neglected each year. 3.5 to 10 million children witness violence against their mom each year. Only 3.5 million? I like the 10. Here's this number. 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before 18. 94%, basically everybody in juvenile justice, have experienced trauma. 40 to 80% of school-age children experience bullying. It ain't 40% no longer. It's closer to 80. 75 to 95% of kids entering juvenile justice have experienced trauma. And 92% of youths and 72 in non-residential mental health treatment programs report multiple traumatic events. So you're going into a prison setting, you got so many kids, millions of kids being abused on some level. If they hit the prison system, they're locked and loaded because they're ready to fit right in with everybody else who's dealing with massive, massive trauma. Now, so many times I see kids that have emotional trauma issues. Where is that coming from? It's an issue from dealing with parental issues that are often from parents who are not really ready to be parents, don't understand what their role is. But I see so much emotional trauma. And here's my point about emotional trauma. When I was working in Las Vegas and I would see kid after kid after kid, and I've said this before, it's statistically impossible that every black kid that I run into is bipolar or is antisocial, oppositional defiant, and, cannot follow rules. Then I start talking to them. It's like, whoa, trauma. Mother shot dead in front of me. Father beaten to death. Brother shot dead in drive-by. Grandmother schizophrenic. Doesn't take her medication. Walks around the house naked. I live in a gang-ridden area. I deal with poverty. I move every 4 or 5 months. And I realize bipolar, antisocial, oppositional, it's nonsense. Minorities get tagged with this stuff so much, but no one wants to admit the real problem is the lifestyle these people are living. So what do the kids turn to? What a shock. They turn to alcohol and drugs as a way to cope. Now, is that for every single kid? No. But this is preventable. You don't have to have a lifestyle like this, but it happens because they're mislabeled. They're given medication then to basically numb them, get them not to have to think. And then now I got into the pill world. Now I'm going to get into everything else as well. So this is an interesting study. This came out of addiction recovery. And it goes from psychcentral.com. That's where I pulled it from. The general population has a physical abuse rate of 8.5%. However, if you're alcoholic, you're at 25% for men and 33% for women. Interesting. That if alcoholics, how many really of them have been physically and sexually abused? Once you do it, you look at that, numbers go way up. The rate of sexual abuse in the general population, we have about 350 million people, hovers around 60%. If you break it down for alcoholics, 12% for men, 50% for women. Half of all women who are alcoholics have some kind of emotional trauma. And rates of childhood emotional abuse and neglect, which are often underreported, not often, always are, trust me, are likely as prevalent among alcoholics as physical and sexual abuse and have similar long term consequences. All right, parents, please, if anyone who's a parent or wants to be a parent or is pregnant, or has one kid, wants a second kid, or has kids now, and they're still teenagers, still young people, listen to this. One of the most destructive forms of parenting that really hurts kids is what's called chronic recurrent humiliation, emotional abuse in the form of name calling and ridicule. You think you're doing your kid a favor by calling him a fat slob and a loser, particularly if this person is obese, we're very, very heavy. All you're driving that person to do is to eat more, get heavier, get more miserable. Why can't you be like your friend Juwan? Loser, loser, you suck. Never should have had you. I should have aborted you. You're a mistake. You're a freak. You're a loser. You don't do well in school. What are you going to do with your life? God, you make me nauseous to look at you. God, you have no friends? What, you smoking weed again? Loser, druggie, get out of my house. Go live on the streets. Toughen you up. Go into the army. What does that accomplish? You know what it accomplishes? It makes your kid feel this big. And how do they respond? Glug, 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 glug. You happy now? You achieved your goal? Don't do it. I know it's easy. I know sometimes you get frustrated with kids. They drive you crazy. I have kids. They drive me crazy. I know it's not easy sometimes. Trust me. Try and avoid it. Don't do the name calling. Don't ridicule. It's devastating. Kids look up to you. They want to love you. When you rip them like that to shreds, they have nothing to hold on to and they fall away. And that's a horrible, horrible feeling. Don't do that. And that goes with parenting, and that goes with school bullying. It does have effects. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names never hurt me. They're lying to you. Names hurt also. Also, don't teach your kids to bury their feelings. It's okay. You don't have to be upset. Don't get angry. You'll get used to it. It'll happen again. So you got beaten up. So you got bullied. No, 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 no. Let your kids express themselves about anything, about a death of a parent, about a death of an animal. Let people know how they feel. Don't be ashamed that your kids speak out. Because guess what? I grew up in a house of secrets. And you know what happened? I got screwed up. Don't do it. Now, what this is also problems with when it comes to childhood, because young kids don't have the frame of reference to put traumatic experiences in context. We'll be able to make sense of them. Their primary outlet for support is the family, which is often the cases of trauma and cases of abuse and neglect. So children adapt to getting their needs met, normal needs met in unhealthy ways, i.e. the drugs and alcohol. In some cases, addiction develops in the trauma survivor's attempt to self-medicate. So rather than thinking about reviving the event, they usually use drugs, alcohol, or other substances or behaviors to numb themselves. You start getting the idea. It starts becoming repetitive. A fear, powerlessness with depression, or to try and cope with intrusive memories. Here's another thing. Drug use may also serve other purposes for trauma survivors. Why? It may allow them to disconnect from their feelings, dampen guilt or rage, increase feelings of relaxation or comfort, or reduce chronic anxiety with suicidal thinking. I get it. I see this every single day in my day job, in my side job, in my weekend job, in my holiday job. Everyone is disconnecting. Depending on the drug of abuse, patients may seek to numb painful memories or conversely to feel alive. Oh, I feel great. I feel wonderful. I feel so amazing. I feel so sexy. I feel so attractive. I feel cool. I feel like I belong. I can join the group now. I'm not a loser. I'm friendly. I'm funny. I'm sexy. People want to be around me. They want to get my company. Patients also report, and I see this a lot also, feelings of camaraderie or unconditional acceptance among other drug users, in some ways replicating the family unit. Oh my God. It's my attempt to create a family. I'm a drug user, but you know what? I share a needle with my friends. I share drugs with my friends. We all drink together. When we get drunk, we drink as a group because we share needles. We don't want to get hepatitis, so we share our needles. We're on top of that. We look out for each other. The videos I was watching to prepare for this webinar, what do I get? We all took Xanny bars. We all did X together. Just a group activity. And it's a pathetic attempt to create a family, which is, of course, not a family. I always tell people who are on drugs, when the drugs run out or the money runs out, are your friends still there? No, no, Bruce. I don't know what happened. I thought, and they all disappeared. What happened to them? They never were your friends to begin with. That's the problem. But people are lonely. They want to connect. They want to feel something special. Oh, we all stayed in the same abandoned building. We all stayed on top of the rooftop. We all stayed in the field behind the building that wasn't being used. We all stayed underneath the highway. We all cribbed in this motel. Blah 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 blah. Family, 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 family. That's not a family. And if you think you're in that kind of family, it's not a family you want to be in because that family is going to mess you up. Once the drugs are gone, once the money is gone, once everyone is either dead or arrested, watch how long this family lasts for. And the answer is it doesn't. Okay, now, here's a topic I wanted to bring up. The Purple Drank, talking about lean. Now, you saw a Juice World, and you know what he did with Future. You see the bottle, well, I'm sorry, the styrofoam cup being poured over the world on drugs. And it is so popular and so prevalent. I've actually had two kids in the last 6 months. When I came out to talk to them, what are they holding? They're holding 20 ounces of Sprite. And I noticed the coloration is not there. And I said to them, hey, you doing lean? And both of them looked at me and said, yeah. I said, how much syrup you got in there? Oh, enough, man. So you're going to be high. You're not going to deal with reality. You're going to disconnect. And the answer is, yeah, that's what was happening. Made total sense to me. So where did this all come from? It contains codeine. Again, that's derivative from, it's an opiate. And what it comes out, there's different names for it, of course. We all know this. We've done this before already. Zizzup, lean, syrup drank, purple jelly, Texas tea, whatever. But what is the whole point about taking lean? What is the whole goal of getting on to taking enough lean to really start to impair you? It gives you motor skill impairment, lethargy, drowsiness, and a disassociative feeling from all other parts of the body. Okay, makes sense. Where did this all come out of? This came out of Houston, okay? And it came out initially from blues musicians who would cut their Robitussin with beer. They took Robitussin, but it was strong to take, and it didn't make you feel all that great. So what do? You cut it with beer. But what is the blues about? My baby done me wrong. I lost my wife over a card game. I just can't get my life together. Depression and anxiety. So now when the wine coolers came out, they became the substitute for the beer. And here's another thing. Who made it really, really popular in the 90s was rapper DJ Screw. He released several tunes mentioning the drink in his mixtapes, which were extremely popular in the Houston area. And here's something that's interesting also. DJ Screw's invoking Purple Drank in his lyrics and his use of slow tempos had caused his style to be characterized as if the song itself had taken too much codeine promethazine. He created that. The music was meant to reflect a sense of numbness, of not having to deal with reality and losing motor control. But here's what happened, though. The apparent purple drink related to the death of DJ Screw. That's what they believe happened to him. Here's something interesting also. In 2004, University of Texas found out that 8.5 secondary school students, these are kids that are not in high school yet, had taken codeine syrup to get high. 8.5%? Where are the parents? How do you not recognize the signs when you see styrofoam cups, codeine, Jolly Ranchers, Sprite, and not think that there's something wrong here. No public outcry. How do you not see it? So obvious to me. 8.5% of secondary school students in Texas are taking lean. That's not a problem. And who are some? Just some, a small number of the victims of taking lean. You got DJ Screw, Big Mo, Pimp C, Frito Santana, and someone who I like and almost died from it is Lil Wayne. And he almost died from it. And the point is, I was looking for articles that would talk about lean in rap culture, but why are people taking lean? I see a lot of articles now about people talking about the fact that they're saying about there's a problem in hip hop of mental health issues. I saw some a video from called Everyday Struggle. Joe Budden was breaking down. He started crying while discussing mental health in rap. Budden, sorry. And he says most of our favorite artists suffer from mental illness. And they're telling us how sick they are. And he was upset over the daughter of Styles P, who committed suicide. And he got very upset and started getting emotional about it. So the question is, why are you taking it in the first place? Why? And you realize there's undiagnosed mental illness, there's childhood issues. And what's the main thing also? I don't want to deal with reality. I get that lethargy. It takes me away to a different state. I don't want to deal with reality. And that's something that I try and work with when I work with people and I try and understand why they need to be on such heavy usage of drugs and alcohol. It makes sense to me. They don't want to deal with reality. I get it. Now, next piece I want to talk about is
You know what? It wasn't going live. So